curse of the forest demon. Let me be upfront about this. I despise blood trees. There are countless ways to die in this world, a significant portion of which are caused by cryptids. Many of those are swift or relatively painless, but a smaller number inflict agony. Within this group, two particular methods of death stand out, both of which everyone needs to be aware of. First, the mental break. This method isn't exclusive to eldritch creatures, but they seem to relish it. The idea of forcibly removing your mind and soul from your body, driving you mad while causing excruciating pain, is likely their favorite pastime. You sit there, trapped in an endless nightmare, enduring a relentless assault on your soul while they bombard you with imagery and visions no human should ever witness. Second, the physical break. These are what I call digesters, entities, human or otherwise, that secure your body and subject you to unimaginable torture. Skin peeling, bamboo beneath fingernails, eyelids severed, the list goes on. These beings often possess the ability to heal the wounds they inflict, allowing them to perpetuate the pain indefinitely without ending your life. Blood trees? They excel in both methods. I don't know what depraved mind concocted these monstrosities, but I hope their creation backfired spectacularly. Blood trees are elusive, but they are surprisingly common. Every forest in the U.S. and Canada harbors them. The younger specimens are more active, constantly seeking sustenance. Periodically, cults emerge around them, with their members clad in robes, chanting in invented languages as they sacrifice innocent victims to the tree's insatiable hunger. These trees typically feast on a living body for several weeks, and then for increasingly longer periods as they mature and learn to prolong their meals. The older blood trees are the ones that truly cause concern. A single living body can sustain them for decades, meaning you are essentially a prisoner within their digestive system for the remainder of your natural life. If they acquire more bodies, they store them for future consumption. The menacing tree from the Johnny Depp version of Sleepy Hollow? A blood tree. Some can even serve as gateways to a realm of pure agony, although these are extremely rare. Therefore, blood trees possess the unique ability to not only digest you over an extended period, keeping you alive while doing so, but many also have the power to torment your mind during the process. This explains my animosity towards them. The following investigation highlights three crucial points. Firstly, my utter abhorrence of blood trees. Secondly, my disdain for other agencies, take that, FBI. And lastly, my reluctance to embark on any investigation alone. Isolation increases vulnerability, leaving you helpless. Now on to the investigation. Agent Echo, arrival on scene at 6:45, X-Deck 20, Colorado. As you'll soon realize, my dislikes are plentiful. Dense forests, cults, springform pans, and the FBI. Today, three of these unwelcome elements converged. I found myself at the entrance to a state park, whose name I won't disclose for obvious reasons. This time, I didn't need to blend in with the locals, so no dingy apartment or beat-up vehicle to contend with. Instead, I headed to Fort Carson and commandeered one of their range control trucks, a vehicle with sufficient ground clearance and self-recovery capabilities. I parked the imposing vehicle in the gravel parking lot, freshly coated with snow. I cannot emphasize enough how breathtaking this state is. Snow-laden trees, tranquil wilderness, elk roaming freely, and often a lack of human presence. The small visitor center nestled against a mountain range, an idyllic setting for a lovely state park. It was a log cabin-style, single-story building with large windows, a dark stain finish, and a green tin roof. A set of glass double doors served as the entrance, with a short flight of stairs leading up to it and a handicap ramp to the side. A few park ranger trucks were parked off to the side, and the rest of the lot was empty except for a couple of mid-sized SUVs and a Subaru or two. After parking and shutting off the truck, I stepped out and checked my gear. I was wearing snow pants over my jeans and a matching parka with a fur lining. Mittens covered my thin undergloves, and I wore a black beanie. It was frigid outside, and I despise being cold, but I dressed down enough to avoid overheating while walking. My backpack contained enough food and supplies for several days of travel, with a small axe hanging off the side. I slung a 12-gauge shotgun over my shoulder and slid a .454 revolver with a 6-inch barrel into the holster at my hip. Why such a large revolver? Several reasons. First, This is bear country. I don't care about hibernation season. You don't venture into bear country at any time without packing some serious firepower. Second, revolvers don't jam like semi-automatics do. And third, a 454 will take down a bear with minimal drama. Dare to engage a 500-pound bear with a 9mm? I dare you. Bear attacks happen quickly, so you won't have time to play John Wick with a bear that can outmaneuver you. Satisfied that I had everything, I ascended the snowy steps and entered the visitor center. It was quiet, not unnervingly so, just devoid of loud conversations. A tall, muscular man with sandy hair approached me. A park ranger, judging by his uniform, he opened his mouth to speak when I shoved a piece of paper in his face. He took a moment to read it, then folded it and returned it to me. Well, that takes care of the initial questions. I'm, fake name, obviously, Ranger Sandover, call me Mike. Echo, nice to meet you. Echo? A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Is that a secret code name? I wasn't about to explain the complexities of agency policy or the necessity of official cover names to a park ranger. Yes, Mike, it's a code name, now mind your own business. Instead, I looked at him directly. He was probably an inch or two taller than Shout, but more muscular. Yep, can we get down to business, Mike? He chuckled. Sure thing. He turned and gestured for me to follow as he walked through the facility. You with the FBI or something? I bristled. You might not be aware of this, but I despise the FBI. No, they do their own thing. I don't interfere. I barely concealed my disgust. The walk through the facility was brief. It took only a few seconds to reach the wooden door labeled Ranger Office, which Mike swung open to reveal the contents within. It wasn't anything special. A standard-issue wooden desk sat in the middle. A computer monitor from 20 years ago occupied a corner, along with the nameplate of the area supervisor, James T. Celery. It should be clear by now that all of these names are fabricated. Ranger Celery sat his portly behind in a swivel chair behind the desk. He was massive, not like a UFC heavyweight, but like a man who could devour an entire elk in one sitting. Beads of sweat clung to his fat face just from sitting, and his hair had receded from the top of his head, leaving a thin horseshoe of brown hair around the circumference of his scalp. To his side stood another ranger, bringing the total on duty to 3. Christ, she was incredibly attractive. Black hair, bright blue eyes, a head taller than me, and probably in better shape than Mike. That was about all she had going for her. Her name tag read Bristol. Who is this newbie? Why are you bringing an armed civilian in here? Not a civilian. Remember the other day when we got a call about an agent coming to investigate? This is Agent Echo. Bristol looked at me as if I had just beaten her dog and killed her mother. Probably the same way I look at FBI agents. And why do we need an agent? This is a state park. We don't need. This woman was already getting on my nerves, so I cut her off. Are you in charge? If not, then shut the hell up. This is beyond your pay grade. I could hear Shout's voice now. Do you always start fights wherever you go? Sometimes. I can't help it. The nature of my work leaves me with neither the time nor the patience for uppity subordinates. Bristol turned fully towards me and started to move forward. Instantly, I drew my revolver, thumbed the hammer back, and pointed it at her. Don't even think about it. I could put a new asshole in every inch of your body and still get away with it. The room grew tense. Mike's face went pale. Clearly, he was a laid-back type, one who hadn't witnessed the more savage aspects of human nature. To his credit, Celery remained calm, folding his hands together. All right, everyone, calm down. Bristol, take a walk outside. Agent, please lower your weapon. I understand your role here, but let's have some decorum. I nodded slowly and stepped aside as Bristol passed, her gaze still fixed on me with icy hatred, then closed the door. I lowered the hammer and slid the revolver back into the holster. Please, have a seat. I didn't budge. The search and rescue team will be arriving soon. You can leave with them once the snow clears. He wiped the sweat from his brow with a handkerchief. I shook my head. I'm not search and rescue. There's something else I'm after. And frankly, this is a courtesy, letting you know I'm coming. Sometimes they didn't understand. For various reasons, my objective isn't necessarily the safety of human beings. SAR handles that. My objective is the eradication of the cryptid emergence I was assigned to. That and emotions can be fatal. It's a harsh reality, but it's the way things are. I just need someone who knows the area. Well, Mike is still new. Damn it. And Sar won't be here for a few hours, likely. Double damn it. Which means the only experienced person I can send with you is Bristol. Triple damn it, I sighed. Sar might not be ready to rush out right now. I'm not sure why they'd be delaying, but I don't have the luxury of waiting. Fine, I said after releasing a calming breath. As a group, we walked out of the office. Celery pulled Bristol aside, while Mike and I lagged behind. Be careful. I shouldn't be saying this, but Bristol has a temper, he whispered. Then don't. Thanks for the concern, but I'll be fine, I replied evenly. Celery and Bristol chatted for a few minutes that dragged on far too long. Once they finished, Bristol disappeared to the back for a moment, then returned dressed for the weather, a lever-action rifle slung over her shoulder. I nodded, a gesture she returned, and we walked out of the station and around the back towards the looming line of snow-covered trees that marked the true boundary of the park. We followed the snow-filled footprints into the trees and started along a path that would have been easier to see if not for the 8 inches of snow covering the ground. Echo. Did you make that up? It must be some kind of organization for you to use code names. Are you the CIA? At least she didn't say FBI. No, the CIA handles issues outside of the continental U.S., mostly. Espionage and things like that. I replied evenly, our earlier tension subdued under a layer of professionalism. We walked for a while, the miles passing as time flew by. It was midday before either of us attempted conversation again. Huh. So what are we looking for? You said you aren't search and rescue, so what's the deal? She spoke after a few minutes. We were walking side by side on the pathway, and I pulled up a GPS with a preloaded set of coordinates. Honestly, I won't be sure until I see it. Thump, thump. And hopefully it's nothing. Thump, thump, thump. I paused while Bristol walked ahead, alarm bells ringing in my head. Something was approaching. I accelerated my pace until I caught up with the ranger, my mouth opening to speak. You act like it's gonna just jump out at you. Jesus, she had to say that. From the thick underbrush, a bear burst out. Large, fast, and angry, it shoved me aside, targeting Bristol. My shotgun fell to the side, and I landed on my back. Bristol screamed as the bear slammed her to the ground, its massive paws rising and slamming down in an attempt to rip her limb from limb. If she hadn't gotten her rifle lengthwise between herself and the bear, she would have been done for. As I scrambled to my feet, the bear caught her left shoulder in its mouth, grabbing and dragging her side to side, shaking her violently. I ran up with the 454 in hand. I closed the distance to avoid the risk of hitting her and fired. Once, twice, the bear crumpled, its head mangled. I grabbed Bristol's rifle, looped the sling around the bear's neck, and pulled back hard, giving the ranger some space to wriggle free. Blood pooled beneath her shoulder, and she gasped for breath, her eyes glistening with tears as the realization of what had just occurred sunk in. I dropped to her side and pulled her coat open, expecting to find a tattered mass of flesh where her torso had been. Instead, I found claws, not just marks, but actual claws. The claws from the bear's paws had broken off the moment they pierced her skin. Fuck, all right, you look surprisingly good. Bewildered was a good word for it. Her nervous chuckle split the air. A few drops of blood oozed from beneath her uniform shirt, but her shoulder was a little worse. The teeth had remained intact for a bit longer, leaving a few nasty gouges in the flesh. I pulled a med kit from her bag and got to work. How am I not? What the fuck? She spoke between breaths. She looked up at my face and shot me a peculiar stare. You know what happened? Fucking tell me. That thing should have ripped my guts out. What is going on? I finished bandaging her shoulder and sighed. Reaching out, I removed the claws from her chest and lifted one up, squeezing it between my fingers. It snapped quickly and fell apart. It was already dead. What? She spoke incredulously. Already dead. I think I know why, but I really wish I didn't. I leaned down and removed Bristol's knife from the sheath on her belt. Before she could object, I lifted the bear's arm to expose its underbelly better and plunged the knife in. With a sickening pop, the skin split open, disgorging its insides onto the snow. Well, the entrails at least. Large clots of blood remained attached to the various organs, and I reached a gloved hand into the carcass, searching for a moment. Okay, that is disgusting. What in God's name are you doing? I remained silent for a moment, then withdrew my hand, holding up a horrifying object. It resembled a seed with numerous small roots emanating from it, covered in flesh, like a tumor growing. The roots wriggled randomly, attempting to find purchase. Oh my God! Bristol paled. Most people do when they first see one of these things. Human minds can't fully comprehend some things. Blood tree, God damn it! I inserted the knife tip into the seed and pulled it free. A copious amount of fresh blood gushed from the opening, far more than the palm-sized thing should have been able to hold. I tossed it back onto the bear. It's been using the bear to travel. Animals have an instinct that is difficult to override, especially with a predatory animal. A few more days, and the seed could have taken control. Okay, I'm going to need you to explain this in a bit more detail. Why isn't the bear hibernating? Why did it not kill me? How is it dead? And what the fuck did you just pull out of it? I sighed softly. Look at the bear's head, where I shot it. Look where I cut it. See any blood that didn't come from the seed? No, because it's already coagulated. The bear was mostly dead. It attacked you because the seed trying to control it drove it insane. The seed I pulled out is from a blood tree. They survive off of fresh bodies. There's a whole book I could tell you, but just realize they are bad news, and it seems you have one in your little park. Probably with a cult around it, too. A cult? Like guys in black robes chanting nonsense? Yep, exactly. Blood trees don't usually infect animals. Their instinct makes it difficult to separate an animal from its natural area for them to spread, which means it was probably placed there by someone. Therefore, you have a blood tree cult. Here, help me with this. Finding it next to a bottle of tequila and a rag, I pulled a large bottle of lighter fluid from my bag and tossed Bristol the long torch. She fumbled with it, but caught it. I began dousing the bear carcass with lighter fluid. Not sure how many seeds are in this thing, so the best bet is to burn it. Once finished, I swapped the lighter fluid for the torch and set the bear ablaze, Bristol adding more fluid for good measure. So what now? She asked softly, biting her lip. Find the tree, burn it, kill the cultists. She didn't respond. We took a few minutes to rest and eat, regain some energy. I checked her bandages, but the wounds were surprisingly superficial. Bristol floated the idea of setting up camp, but I shook my head. Not the place we want to camp. If we are going to find it and live, then we have to find it soon. It knows its seeds just died. After securing all of our gear and retrieving her rifle and my shotgun, we continued our walk in the direction the bear had come from, with me reloading the .454 on the way. Half an hour passed before she spoke again. Echo? Far from her earlier bravado at our first meeting, her voice was meek, girlish, scared. Yeah? What is going to happen to me? Damn, she had good instincts. Depends. If the seeds had enough control to sprout on their own, then you'll probably be infected. Your shoulder will ache more, get red hot, and you'll see small roots in the wound. They'll slowly move through your body until they invade your brain and kill you while retaining control of your body. If not, then a few weeks of recovery, and you'll be fine. I don't sugarcoat things. It never pays to. Bad things happen, and they happen whether we like it or not. She let out a small sob. It was too early to tell if she had been infected, though. What happens then? You burn me too? After I put a bullet in your head, yeah. Mostly so you won't feel it. Remember, it's too early to tell, though. You might be all right. That wasn't a lie, at least. We walked further and deeper into the woods. The sun had set, leaving us in darkness, but the moon provided enough light that it reflected off the snow, making walking easier. I didn't want to use a light. We were already making enough noise walking to risk giving ourselves away visually. We stalked silently up the ridge where light played random shadow games over the top and on the other side. I slid down to my knees in the snow, and Bristol followed suit, and we crawled the rest of the way up. Looking out, there was a small clearing, a fire blazing in front of a large, gnarled tree that bled profusely from numerous openings. 4 figures in hooded cloaks stood there, evenly spaced but far from the tree to stay out of range of its flailing limbs and roots. The scene was grotesque, and I heard Bristol gag into her jacket to stifle the sound. I've been around a few of them, and I still have to fight off nausea. These things were bad news on every level. a sickening entity that could have an effect on someone just based on proximity. I watched for a few minutes just to get the nausea under control, and hopefully Bristol could do the same. I looked over to her, lying just a few feet from me. "You all right?" "Yeah, I think." "Make sure you are. This is going to happen fast." I peered over the rise we were lying upon, noticing we were about 6 feet above the clearing. Not much of an elevated position, but enough to give us an edge. I searched in my bag for the bottle of tequila. Shame to use it on a blood tree, but we would have to get another bottle later. I unscrewed the cap and stuffed a rag into it, then put the cap back on. Hop down the hill, kill the cultists, burn the tree. Wait, we can't just kill them. The law doesn't work like that, Echo. Are you serious? Do you know what these people will do to you if they... My words were cut short by the sound of heavy footsteps. I looked back in time to see an athletic man barreling towards us, murder in his eyes with a touch of fanaticism. I saw the faint traces of a ranger uniform before a long leg pushed forward in a vicious kick to my side. The amount of power in the kick was absolutely ridiculous. My body lifted off the snow-covered ground, and with a scream of pain, I went over the side and down the 6-foot drop onto the floor below. Trying to catch my breath, I pushed shakily to my knees, my shotgun lying a few feet away. A quick lift of my head showed me that the 3 robed figures were coming at an alarming pace. Drawing my revolver, I lifted it in a quick motion and fired. One cultist dropped when a 4.54 blew his spine out of his back. My reaction was a bit slow due to the fall, though. I managed to squeeze off one more shot that obliterated the left thigh of a second, causing the woman's screams to echo through the wilderness. The third had reached me. Dropping his full weight on top of me, he knocked the 4.54 from my grasp and closed around my neck with 2 beefy hands, squeezing tight and instantly cutting off my air supply. I thrashed, moving and squirming, trying to get away. Another shot rang out in the forest, followed by a thud off in the distance. I couldn't hear much. My ears were clogged. My vision was fading. He was too strong at this point and had too much leverage. Guess this was my time? A thunderclap startled both of us. The man stiffened and fell to the side as if hit by a sledgehammer, which he might as well have been. Bristol pulled herself forward, ragged breaths shooting steam into the cold night air. Her rifle fell down as she knelt next to me and pulled me up to a sitting position. Leaning on each other, we climbed to our feet, and I grabbed the 4.54. She held the bottle of tequila up for me to see, and didn't even need to say anything. I pulled out the torch and lit the rag, and Bristol reared back like she was throwing a grenade. Her aim was perfect. The Molotov sailed through the air and exploded against the side of the tree. Fire spread all along the trunk, screeches from the tree, a cacophony of all its still living victims, providing a macabre chorus as its death cry. The tree would burn for quite a while, most likely. "Come on, let's get out of here." She didn't respond. Tucked under my shoulder, her breathing was ragged, rough, her body hot against mine. We tried to walk, but she held fast. "Ray, remember what you said earlier? About the seeds?" She spoke softly, almost calmly, as if she had accepted this. I laid her against the ridge and knelt in front of her, reaching out to push her parka aside and lift her bandages. Small roots sprouted from the wound, which was festering in an angry red. "Shit! Ha! Yeah, this sucks." I stood there, cursing internally. She had the instinct to be a part of our agency. That, and she was a fighter, a survivor, a decent fucking person, actually. I pulled the revolver and aimed it at her. "I really wish I didn't have to do this. I know." She stared up at me, scared, but knowing this was going to have to happen. "You aren't going to look away?" "I never do. Just don't tell me when you're going to." I pulled the trigger. My face didn't change, but I just stood there, breathing. Tears made their way down my cheeks, and I pulled a cigarette free and lit it. After the tree had fully burned, I had to do the same to Bristol, as it was the only way to ensure the destruction of the seeds. I climbed the rise again to see Mike Sandover's body lifeless, with a giant hole in his head. I burned his body too, and that of the cultists as well, then began the long trip back to the ranger station. I called Brain on the way back, and by the time I was done with the report, I had made it back. The parking lot was empty. Celery was gone. I put out a mark on him, more on that later, and jumped in the truck. Time to find a bar to get wasted at. End of transcription. There's another one. I'll let you guys know what happened to Celery next time, but until then, stay out of the fucking woods. You've made it to the end. That means something in this video captivated you. Now imagine what's next. Hit that like button to uncover the continuation, and subscribe if you dare. Who knows what might lurk in the next videos? It's only going to get scarier.